Extra Time driven by Continental. June 3rd, 2019. Dad life this weekend for Andrew Wiebe. I was potting plants, doing a lot of things, not watching MLS. So what did I miss?
Yeah, we're aware because you would have talked about Zlatan's bike for 4 hours if you had.
Zlatan had a bike?
It doesn't matter because you can't stop Bruce, baby. The king is back.
More importantly, Juan Agudelo changing the American soccer player position paradigm.
Box to box. He's only 26. 2 more World Cups in him easy.
Go climb Mount Scusa.
What's Mount Scusa? You'll find out. Extra Time starts right now, including a rant from one Bobby Warshaw. Oh, from New York, you are listening to Extra Time, driven by Continental from the AT&T MLS studios in Midtown Manhattan. I'm Andrew Wiebe with my partners in soccer, only one of which is watching live soccer. That's Dave Goss. Just had to out you, let people know. U20 World Cup. Straight into the eyeballs.
There's a pretty good chance that for the next 4 weeks I could watch soccer continuously all day from morning to.
How do you feel about the fact that the African Cup of Nations is in the summer now, as opposed to being in? I used to love it.
Yeah, wow. I don't feel good about it, but the fact that it's in Egypt gets me pretty.
Have you ever?
It's also the largest one
hijacking in person. That's what I just experienced. Just taking it away. Just right into AFCON. Doyle. Bobby Warshaw here. It's a special
hour-long AFCON preview show.
Yeah, that's exactly what this.
I would do that.
Exactly. Look, I mean,
second.
MLS is not done, but we are hitting that break here. 6 games this week, midweek, and the weekend. Then it's basically 2.5 weeks as we OD on Women's World Cup, Gold Cup, Copa America, AFCON, 24/7 soccer. It's a beautiful thing. The U.S. play Jamaica on Wednesday. The U.S. play Venezuela on Sunday. Club and Country will be here for you on those. It's going to be a great summer of soccer. We also have Week 14 recap coming right up. I'm going to just say it right now. I'm going to out myself. It was a weekend of yard work and very little else on my part. I grilled multiple times. I found a free chimenea in the trash. It was
multiple times.
It's actually kind of a flex to say I live in New York and I do yard work. That's pretty good.
I don't actually think it's a flag.
No, it's not. Because
yeah, you've been there.
The yard work
I would just say everyone who lives in New York
describe the backyard, please.
I don't have to shovel anymore, and I don't have to do yard work, and Weeby's out here doing yard work.
I am, and mostly it just is me pulling out 3-inch pieces of glass.
Yeah, there's a lot of dirt back there. There's not a lot of green yet.
He lives in a junkyard.
He lives in the tire district.
I'm trying to dress it up back there before we get to the soccer, and I know, Bobby, you're annoyed right now, but maybe I can impose on you and get a little bit of your expertise, which is interior decor. I feel as though our set doesn't reflect us. I feel as though this empty table is just simply not good enough for Extra Time. I mean, look at it. It just, if you're watching on YouTube, you see it every single show. There's like wood grain here, but it's not real wood.
I think that reflects us.
You think
cheap.
so?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's a knockoff.
Cheap and empty.
Knockoff version of something that's nice.
So should we put anything on this? I mean, I want to put something, but I want to get your guys' thoughts because I'm not the only person that lives here.
I'm down to put things. What are we going to put?
That's the question I'm asking you.
Oh, you didn't have
I thought you were asking Bobby.
I am asking Bobby, but Bobby's just sitting there with a blank look on his face.
Hearing Doyle say that makes me wish so bad that Doyle was single right now and on Tinder, just so we could see what Doyle would put on his profile.
Oh my God.
And it would probably be, my name is Matt, cheap and empty.
That could be a good sell for you. Wow. It's been too long.
For someone who doesn't like bits, it took a really long time to get there.
I'm not going to sell that one, Bobby.
Let us know what you think. Send us stuff.
Yes,
I'm thinking about jumping on eBay and just rolling through this thing. Let's talk about soccer, though. We hit a lot of different tangents there. And while I'm entertained, Bobby, I actually like the Tinder joke. I think it works well.
Thanks.
Time to talk soccer. It's new. It's not cheap. It's Providence Park. 12 games on the road for the Portland Timbers. They're back. They didn't get a win, so my prediction for a whole lot of points for them got off to a little bit of a rocky start, but it's LAFC, so everybody is on a rocky start with them. Before we get to the game, before we get to Carlos Vela and how Bob Bradley thinks he should get better treatment from the referees because he got mauled, in Bob's words, in this match, let's just celebrate this thing, because in 2010 it was a baseball stadium. Like a true minor league baseball stadium in downtown Portland, which I assume to be awesome in that iteration. But in a matter of 9 years, it's gone from that to what we saw on Saturday night against LAFC. 25,218 seats, a towering new presence on the east side of this thing. I don't know what we're calling it, but it needs a good nickname. It's got Scusa.
Scusa is what we're calling it, right?
Soccer City USA is what it's got on
Mount Scusa. I think that's what we're going.
Mount Scusa? I could get down with that.
Yeah.
$85 million, which is probably actually on the low side for what this all costs, because they did new video boards, they revamped the whole thing. I want to take you back to BMO Field and when it arrived in Major League Soccer. It was downtown. People thought it was awesome, and it cost less than this addition to Providence Park. That's how far Major League Soccer has come in a facilities sense.
You ever go to that original BMO field?
I did.
It was like a high school football stadium.
Yeah. It was a little bit.
And I thought it was awesome.
Yeah,
when I
it
went.
looked awesome.
My favorite stadium's still Empire Field.
Oh,
the temporary one.
yeah.
Put it up, take it down. Yeah, Rector set. That's sweet. So I actually was a little skeptical about this, which is weird for me because normally I'm all on board anytime there's new stadium of anything. When I saw the photos, when I saw the renderings, I thought it looked funny. I thought it looked weird. I thought it would look out of place, this new stand at Providence Park. And so I was like, I like it. It's cool. It's a lot of money, and it's going to be a good thing for those fans, but I'm not sure it fits. And then the game comes on, and I'm blown away.
Yeah.
Like, you put people in this. Who would have thought? You put people in the stadium.
It's so vertical, right? And having the roof on it as well, I think it holds the sound in better. Taylor Twellman and John Champion were raving about that during the during the broadcast.
Not everything's a podcast,
right? And like you could sort of feel it through the screen. And I like that it looks different. I like that you could see this is a stadium that's been built in stages, and it gives it some character, and it gives it like a different feel than a lot of what you see elsewhere in the world. I think they did a great job, and I think it's going to matter during the second half of the season. They already have a great home field advantage in Portland. You saw it come alive in the second half. I think it's going to be a miserable place to play that team.
Part of the beauty, I think, is that it is sort of mismatch. It's been a lot of different things. It has a history. It was one thing. It became another. They were able to engineer it and design it in a way that it still feels like it fits, but it feels different.
We should have little replicas of all the soccer-specific
Actually,
stadiums
that's pretty
right
cool.
here. That would be pretty good.
See, now it's coming to you. That's inspiration. A lot of them have been made.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll go, we'll ask them for some favors around.
Cool.
But I think I haven't been there, as I've said many times. This is basically just
Why
me
isn't
begging
Jillian on the show?
Jason Sagini. Well,
Our good friend Jillian
she'll be here right
Sakovits
after
was
this
there.
on the call-up talking about it. They pushed up our taping schedule.
You couldn't pull some strings and get her in
I would
early?
have had to kick one of you off.
That's fine.
Looking at Bobby right now.
Bobby's not even on the show so far.
Are you waiting for Bobby to talk? Because you're going to wait for really...
Before we came on this show, you had thoughts about Providence Park.
I had many thoughts, but it was easy because I said them all, and then Doyle said them all. So now I don't have anything to say.
Yeah.
No, it's exactly what the stadium needed. It needed something else on that far side to like kind of balance out one of the sides of the stadium. Then you've got Timbers Army behind the goal, which goes back farther than any supporter section you'll see in MLS. It's unique in the way the noise comes out of that and the way it's set up. And then you've got the wall on the other side of the stadium, which makes no sense, which once again is why it's cool. It's very Portland. Like, it's not a huge city. Everything has to fit in where it fits in, and everyone there loves the culture that they have. And I think the stadium fits that very well. And when the fans come in, as you said, they make it their own, and it's fun to be around. When I went last year for the playoffs, you could see, though, like, someone said to you, hey, we're going to build that stand up higher and put a roof on it. You're like, that's the one thing I would add to this stadium. Like, that's exactly what it needs, and now it has that. And it was one of the best atmospheres in the league, and now it's one of the best atmospheres in the league, but we're lucky to have it.
Congratulations, Rose City. Onward, as they might say.
Also,
Mount Scusa. I kind of like that, actually.
I think they put 19,000 in there for their NWSL game on Sunday.
Yeah, it looked
pretty cool
jam-packed.
soccer culture.
Yeah, that's part of it for me. Is if I go, it has to be 2 home games. Can't just be
we
one.
have
Need a
something
little
for
bit
you
of
in the
both.
mailbag.
Oh, do we?
Yeah.
Bobby, we have something for you now. You can talk about the game. It was a 3-2 win for LAFC. It was not the result that the Timbers wanted in their party. LAFC crashed that thing. That happens if you give Carlos Vela the ball wide open via the goalkeeper. Sorry, Jeff Adnella. It was not a shining moment for you, but it'll be better.
Well, it feels like we've talked about LAFC a lot, and we've talked about Portland a lot. To me, the main takeaway from this game was the Carlos Vela fouling, wasn't it? And the fact that he got taken down 4, 5, 6 times, and then
8 times.
8 times total,
Yeah.
and then Bob Bradley's comments calling out those fouls after the game.
Let's get those comments, by the way, because Bob Bradley went back to the treasure trove. He is a machine right now.
Do you think Barcelona's his favorite team?
I think they might be. Let's listen to what he had to say about those fouls.
When's the last time you saw Messi get mauled the way Carlos got mauled tonight? Okay, I don't think I've ever seen a game where Messi got mauled like that. All right, and in the end, if I don't say that, the sad thing is nobody else will write it.
So we're going to talk about it, Bob. And I think he's sending a message, not just to Carlos Vela saying, hey, I got your back, I'm going to protect you, but to every single referee and to pro through the rest of the year saying, hey, give my guy, I called it special treatment.
It's not special treatment. No.
It's not.
He's not asking for special treatment for Carlos Vela.
But it should be, and we'll get there. It should be.
Oh God, I think one of my hobby horses over the years has been persistent infringement. I think that at times, pretty often actually, MLS officials have not enforced it. And with Carlos Vela, he gets fouled pretty brutally 2-3 times. The fourth time, no matter who it is, that should be a yellow card. And it's not just Carlos Vela. If it's Latif Blessing getting fouled like that, if it's Diego Valera getting fouled like that, if it's a center back getting fouled like that, you have to enforce persistent infringement. It makes the game better. And I don't think they've done a good enough job with that, with players like Vela and Pozuelo and a few others this season.
Also, it's not an MLS thing. This is a world soccer thing.
Absolutely.
It will never be a second yellow, too.
Yeah.
It would never be a second yellow. I've never seen a persistent infringement second yellow given, which is
drives me nuts.
Which is basically I'm going to warn you, but it's not going to go that bad. Like, you can continue to do this.
Well, not yet.
The culture you create.
Not yet. I think what we're talking about right now is not yet, but it needs to go in that direction. Because I think the important takeaway from this is if you're mad at the Portland Timbers, if you're a Toronto FC fan who is mad at teams for kicking Pozuelo, you should not be mad at the players. The players are given a paycheck. They are given a referendum to win games and to do it within the rules. It is the referee's job to enforce and sometimes even decide what the rules are in that moment. And referees need to take a better measure at understanding what they need to do to protect any player. What I would add to this, Matt, is especially players like Carlos Vela. The bottom line is sports now more than ever are about stars. And I have no problem saying that Carlos Vela and Ignacio Piatti and Pipe Higuain and Alejandro Pozuelo should be given a special set of rules because sports are set up for the viewing pleasure. Those stars provide more viewing pleasure, and I have no problem saying protect Carlos Vela more than you protect Mark Anthony Kaye. That's my own personal opinion, but referees need to do a better job doing it with everyone, and especially the stars.
It's an unnecessary statement of what you're making, though, because no one else is getting fouled the way those players are.
Well,
it was the Michael Jordan rule. You didn't have to create a special rule to protect Michael Jordan because he was the only one getting hacked that way, because he's the only one good enough, and he's the only one necessary.
Here's the thing. If Mark Anthony Kaye gets fouled 5 times, your point is that the referee will never give a red card for the second time for a person or second yellow card for persistent infringement. I think we generally agree. If Mark Anthony Kaye is getting fouled that many times, maybe you don't give a second yellow for persistent infringement on a Mark Anthony Kaye. We agree with the precedent and the future use of that rule. But you cannot do it that way with Carlos Vela because they will continue to foul Carlos Vela. He will get hurt and it ruins the viewing pleasure when Carlos Vela is out of a game. And I don't more than if Mark Anthony Kaye is out of a game. We can agree with that. You need to change the rules.
I refuse to look at it from that cold and calculating business perspective. And our listeners should understand, Bobby was a professional soccer player. He was a defensive midfielder mostly. He was an enforcer. He knows how these things go. So remember that perspective. But for me, I'm just talking about the integrity of the competition. Whether it's Vela, whether it's Mark Anthony Kaye, whether it's Bill Tuiloma getting hacked by, I don't know, Adama Diamande, say. Persistent infringement is a thing. It has to be enforced. I thought also some of those fouls that Portland players committed, the one on Jordan Harvey, that was studs up in the ankle. Like, these were orange cards, if not outright red. And I still remember 2011, when in the span of a couple of months, we lost Steve Zakuani, David Ferreira, Javier Morales, and Branko Boskovic on terrible challenges. Terrible challenges. And it ruined that season. And I fear, after seeing it, seeing the game play out the way it did, I'm a little bit worried that we could be entering back into a similar era.
It's not the fouls, by the way, that are like, hey, I'm muscling you off the ball, or hey, I'm trying to win this ball. It's the fouls
Totally
where
fine
Carlos
with
Vela is unprotected, and you're coming through the back of him for no other reason.
Carlos
Not to win
Vela
the ball.
or anyone.
I agree, or anyone. But the problem is the majority of these tackles come on players like the Carlos Velas or David Ferreras or Boskovic or whatever you might call of the world. And by the way, we are missing Piatti and Higuain, and it is a tragedy, but I don't think that has anything to do with tackles.
No, the Piatti one was absolutely a tackle. Was it Christian Higuita? Just stepped right on his ankle late. And it's like, Piatti's one of the best players in the league, and we're maybe not going to get to see him more than a half dozen games this year.
So, point landed, Bob. Guess that's what we're saying right now. Atlanta United, They were bad. Now they're good.
Oh, can we also say you said it was the only thing that came out of this game? Can I add something? Or
Sure.
can
Can I make just one final point?
Yeah.
David mentioned that it is part of the world game. You even look at a Man City. Fouling is a key part of Man City's approach. They do it in a certain way. So I just want to point out this is not uniquely MLS. I wanted to add
also,
what David said
Messi
about
got
the
mauled
global.
by Chelsea in the Champions League.
Moving on.
Year.
Thank you for letting me
But
add
you
that.
said one thing. The other thing that came out was, is Andy Polo a starter for the Portland Timbers, especially if they're at home? Abobasi comes off the bench and gives them a boost, but played in a 2-forward setup with Polo playing in center midfield. I think Paredes is very good. I would like to see Abobasi start and Fernandez on the wing.
So I understand. I'm a huge
I wonder where Matt stands on this,
No,
guys.
No, but it's not just Abobasi.
I'm a huge Abobasi had been slumping for one.
Yes.
For two, you're playing LAFC. So I understand
If that's the reason, then that's fine.
I understand wanting the extra midfielder out there.
But the question is going forward. What is it? Because Fernandez is at his best going at goal.
I suspect it's going to have to be game by game. And I agree with you. I think in the end, it's going to end up being Fernandez as a goal-scoring winger and Abobasi as a center forward. I think that'll work out better long term. But Jeremy Abobasi is kind of back at square one. He's got to prove it to Gio Savarese again that he should be a starter.
How should Savarese approach that decision game to game? Because my gut, and to go kind of back to the star quality aspect of it, my gut says to me, you do it in whatever way gets the best out of Brian Fernandez.
Yeah, that's what
whatever it is that gets the best out of him, that doesn't like completely kill your midfield cohesion and your ability to defend, you do whatever that is because he will be the difference maker for you. And then you let Blanco and Valeri fill in as they may because they know how to do that.
We've talked about how the stretch of home games, 17 home games now to finish the year with some away games sprinkled in, is an advantage. And I think we all agree overall it's an advantage. But I also think it offers Gio Savarese a unique problem. And I would point to the lineup he played with Morera and Villafana and Polo instead of Valentin and Abobasi. That to me is his going for it lineup. When you play in front of that crowd at Providence Park now, you are going to play your going for it, your best overall maximum potential lineup, because that's what you need to serve and feed the home fans. But I also think it's safe to say what Matt said is true, that might not be their optimal lineup, especially against all opposition. So I just wonder, while they have the home field advantage, how much of that creates a problem that Gio Savarese doesn't have an obvious answer to maximize their ability.
Interesting. We'll see. A lot of home games left. 16 more. They got to win a whole lot of those to keep climbing the table. In 11th right now are the Portland Timbers, but as you said in your column, Matt, I don't think we expect them to be there for very long.
Top three team in the West.
Yeah, I think it's somewhere around
Put the
there.
B on it. Yo, put the B on it.
No.
No? You're just going to say it, but no B on it?
Correct.
All right. Atlanta United, top 3 team in the East. Do we agree about that? Is that canon now?
Cheap and empty.
Back to it? Cheap and empty. Ooh, well, they were exciting.
He was talking
for 2
about
years.
his guarantee, not
sorry,
Atlanta United.
my bad.
I think.
He was saying put the B on it, and I was like, what is the B? Is that? How did I miss that? I don't know how I missed it.
It's the trash fire that is Ben Bear.
Yeah. Atlanta United, 26 points. They're 2 back the Philadelphia Union. They started the season quite poorly. They got a lot of shtick for it. Frank de Boer, people were yelling for his head, at least some of the less logical people on Twitter, that might be. Look, 18 points from 24, 8 games in 28 days. They had 2 straight losses. That was not great, but ultimately they did what they had to do outside of at Red Bulls and at RSL notwithstanding. Justin Martinez is back. He's not just scoring. As you wrote, Matt, he's kind of running things. But what's incredible...
His usage is up 30% year over year.
Which is interesting.
Yeah.
But what's more interesting to me is that this was the team that everybody watched every week because they wanted to see him in the open field, and they were so exciting from an attacking perspective. And now they're the best defensive team in the league, and that strikes me as a difficult thing to do in a matter of months.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like they were a bad defensive team. They gave up, I think, only 40 goals in 2018 and maybe even fewer than that in 2017. So they were really good under Tata, but they sacrificed some of that to be the freewheeling, free-flowing, open team until last year's playoffs. And remember, last year's playoffs, they didn't give up an open play goal. So this does feel like a continuation of that. And then frankly, it's boosted by Miles Robinson. Miles Robinson went from a little used sub, I think he played maybe 400 minutes last year, and then 1 game in the playoffs was pretty good, to one of the top 5 center backs in the league. And so when you have a guy like Robinson and Gonzalez Perez, and then you put Remedi, who's maybe the most underrated defensive midfielder in the league, in front of them, you're not going to give up a lot of goals. Add in 60% possession on top of it. I still don't love the way they're playing in possession. What they did against Chicago was probably their most impressive in terms of turning possession into penetration, but they have the talent to just brute force it.
Andrew, I need to make this point because I don't think we talk about it often enough. This year, we have talked about the freewheeling Atlanta United of the past, of 2017 and 2018. But we forget that Tata Martino explicitly 100% threw in the towel and said that's not going to get it done. Like, he literally, in the playoffs, everything they had built for 2 years, he wrapped it up in a paper bag and he threw it in the trash because it was not the right game plan to win a championship. So all of the remembering of yesteryear and how great it was, we also have to have the caveat that even Tata Martino is like, yeah, this ain't it. So there was some need to adjust, and it was nice that there was 34 games of the freewheeling Atlanta United before the 5 games in the playoffs, and they just sat deep and kicked it long. But I just want us to remember that part, that even Martino was like, Martino was...
At the same time, DeBoer is not sitting deep and kicking it long.
I just want to say that the need to adjust, the need to do something different to win a trophy.
They didn't do it with Barco here. Joseph Martinez has his change. Frank DeBoer says it takes six months, for teams to understand his system, that they're looking for a starter in the summer. People feel like this team is already loaded. Maybe Barco gets sold after U20 World Cup.
That's tough to see. Just so people, the report is that the sell-on fee for Barco is 30% if they sell him before the end of the year. After January 1st, drops to 10%. I think it was reported in The Athletic that those are the numbers. That's a big difference. If you're talking about selling a guy for $15 or $20 million, 30% as opposed to, like, you're talking a $3 million difference.
Do you think Atlanta United recoup their investment on Ezequiel Barco when and if they sell them? I'm bringing this straight out of the group chat. We discussed this one. We were split.
I don't think I had a strong point on it.
I think they will come close because I think that he's, one, a player that a lot of people do rate, even though sometimes we watch him week to week and wonder about him. He's young. He has really impressive experience. Again, Copa Sudamericana in the Argentine League. Even if it wasn't for a prolonged period, again, he was a teenager.
He is a teenager.
Yeah.
He's an MLS Cup champion.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think
they will come close.
I already said yes as well. Also,
you think they sell him? Remember, you have to add in agent fees, right? There's $15 million plus agent fees plus signing bonus plus a 10%. So they've got to sell him for 18 to 20-ish.
Yeah. I think they will. I also think that he's Argentine. He's the next Argentine thing. And there are teams around the world that don't maybe do all the research they should be doing all the time and are willing to sign that player because they want that in their team.
But hold on. But I want to dig into that real quick. Do we not think that this guy could be
that's not the question.
Worth 18
that's not
to
the
20?
question.
It's not the question.
Well, maybe. Is 20 million, what are we saying? Euros, dollars? Someone pick a thing.
Let's say dollars.
Okay, $20 million worth a potential
let's say Canadian loonies.
Well, then it would be way less. That's like $15 million at that point.
He's got the conversion rate on.
Because they're doing bad right now. That's why I go shopping in Toronto.
Yeah, a lot of trips and back and forth to Pearson. Or maybe Bishop, actually.
Love my Billy Bishop. Yeah. I would just say that there are teams around the world that will pay for that and that want that in their team, whether it's because they're trying to break. Let's talk about AC Milan, right? A team that isn't number one option for a lot of players. Oh, we get the Argentine guy. He's the next Messi. He's the next pick your other guy, Angel Di Maria. Not that he's either of those guys as a player. And we'll pay that amount of money because we can't get Ozil to come to our team right now. And we can't get Eden Hazard to come to our team. So we'll pay that amount of money because it's worth it for us to show our fan base we're serious to move into the next realm of our club.
There's a certain Brazilian striker they bought after a U20 World Cup, did AC Milan. Remember back in the day?
Yep, the Duck, baby.
Hey, the Duck.
Not Argentine.
Well, I said Brazilian, yeah. Still the same sort of like cachet with the name value there. DeBoer also said they're going to look for a starter in the summer. Where would you look?
Left back.
That's
what I assume, right? Michael Parkhurst has been filling in. Mikey Ambrose had a few games. Breckshay experiment did not work. George Bello's been hurt. Didn't look up for it the first couple of games of the year when he got a little bit of a run. He's only 16, 17 as well. Left back seems...
A lot of teams might say that as well, by the way. Yeah. We'll see. All is right in the Eastern Conference, though. We're talking about Atlanta United up there. Red Bulls are climbing as well. They knocked down RSL. 2 bad road games for RSL. And, oh, by the way, there's some news breaking right now, which is Omar Gonzalez is headed to Toronto FC pending medical and ITC. We'll talk about that in a second. Red Bulls, it's back to what they did before. Chris Armas said we only talked about them when they were doing badly. Well, they're doing well, and we should talk about them. What are we talking about? Is it more of the same? Again, I was doing yard work, so I missed that 4-0. I have no idea.
It was emphatic. It was their best performance of the season. Granted, it was against a RSL team that was missing Albert Rusnak and did not play what I would consider their best center back pairing.
They also played in Montreal on Wednesday night.
Also were on short rest.
Saturday.
Also rotated their fullbacks a little bit. A lot of caveats in this one, but the Red Bulls looked awesome in the second half, and they looked good for the full 90, really. Kaku looks up for it. He makes a difference when he's playing like this. And then the other thing is, Chris Armas has talked about passing and the style that they want, and they can't just be press. And if you look at the Red Bulls a year ago at this time, they almost didn't care about completing passes. They wanted to play direct, get it into the attacking third, and turn it into a game of winning 50-50s. And they were amazingly good at it. They still press, but in a more traditional way. And we saw that. Like, this was a high-pressing performance from the Red Bulls. But when they get on the ball, they're back to hitting those third-line passes, to playing 2 feet in the pockets, turn and go, which is much more what the Red Bulls were, I think, in 2015-16 and into 2017.
Is the Bradley Wright Phillips era over? Like, I asked that question because as I'm listening to you talk about this, I'm thinking about what made them special at so many times last year from the attacking sense, and BWP got 20 goals. Yeah. And now you're looking at an unused sub or DNP list.
Well, he's hurt.
I know, but like...
But he's at the age where you could get hurt.
Right.
And just never
it kind of feels like the page is even like starting to turn, and you're just wondering
don't forget,
whether
before he was hurt, he had 1 goal in 17 games.
I know. I mean, I wonder about that.
Yeah, it might be.
I wonder if he has a second career with the Red Bulls as a number 10 in behind the striker. They decide Brian Wright and Barlow are the right guys up top, that Kaku is going to be on the field, but do they love Muil? Do they love Royer out wide? Maybe Kaku goes there. So I'm going to keep an eye on whether he actually becomes the second striker, taking the place of one of the 2 wingers who they just haven't. It hasn't felt like they've been convinced by those guys over the last year and a half.
Center backs in Toronto have not.
That would be shocking, by the way. Do you want to put a hard B on that, or is that something?
No hard B.
No, it's on hard B. It's just I'm talking about the Red Bulls.
That would be one.
Did I miss something where hard B became a thing?
When you're talking about the Red Bulls and you're talking about Bradley Wright Phillips, well, are they going to trade him? Is anybody going to take him? Probably not.
You never know.
Okay, that's true. Maybe if Philadelphia decides they need goals, maybe
Look at what
SKC
Orlando
decides
did
they
when
need
they
goals.
went out and got Sacha and Justin Miram and guys like that.
It's possible, but I think it's more likely Bradley Wright Phillips stays with them, and then where he's going to the lineup, and he probably doesn't go back up at center striker. And I just think he's played in behind the striker in Champions League before. It doesn't feel like they love their options at winger when it comes to a big game.
When you say in behind the striker, you say where Muil and Royer play, not where Kaku plays.
Well, yeah, where Kaku plays and then Kaku goes wide.
Got it.
So I'm just going to keep an eye on that. How do they handle the situation? I think maybe they try give him position change.
I think it'd be really interesting. That'd be fun to watch.
Omar Gonzalez, can he fix the Toronto FC defense? He's headed from Atlas. Has not been convincing, let's say, from the Reds' back line here.
No.
1-1 draw with Toronto, but they had to do that late, with Vancouver on Friday night, but they got it late via Nick De Leon, kind of like deflected, snuck its way through. Vancouver, not super convincing, but that's kind of been the case for them for a while now.
I think there are 2 ways to look at it with Omar. First is that he kind of hasn't been the same guy since the 27 CONCACAF Champions League. He was really good for Pachuca in that tournament, but in the 2 years since, he's kind of, I don't want to say nosedived, but he hasn't been the same guy. Feet are moving a little bit slow. All this stuff that made him so good for almost a decade. I don't want to say all of it's gone, but like all of it is like 5% missing. That's the first way of looking at it. Second way of looking at it is in MLS, if you can get an experienced, quality, 30-year-old center back, you do it.
Some might call it the Chad Marshall theorem.
The Chad Marshall theorem. Chad Marshall, Drew Moore.
So that's where I think
Drew Moore had like 4 good years after he turned 30. We're seeing Iko Para. I mean, he struggled Wednesday, but like if it wasn't for Iko Para yesterday, Philly scored 7. You know, like these guys, like it tends to be a pretty good bet. So I understand absolutely why Toronto FC are doing it.
So my thing, though, is Chad Marshall, and especially Iko Para, not especially, but also Iko Para, those guys were also off-the-charts athletes, and it didn't go away as they got older. I mean, Marshall until he got hurt, basically. Drew Moore wasn't that guy, isn't that guy. And I don't know that Omar has the same athleticism that he had when he was with the Galaxy and then what you're saying peaking over the last 4 or 5 years. So my question is, can he be the Drew Moore? Can he be a guy who can win games because he can read the game quicker, because he has experience in the big moments? And I think right now, Simon and Mavinga are both struggling, having it on their shoulders of reading the game and
I
doing everything.
I totally agree. Simon has not coped with his own loss of athleticism. If you remember in 2015, 2016, he was the most active center back in the league. He would come running off the line, making plays in midfield. He's lost half a step, and because of that, he's no longer an effective MLS defender.
Is there a little bit of an Aurelian Kalin effect in that sense? Because you remember when Kalin was that guy?
Yeah.
And then he's been a reserve for the last 3-4 seasons because all of his marauding no longer was effective anymore.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. But Omar was never really that guy.
No, he's not that guy.
He was pretty active, but he wasn't he wasn't like a Colon or
So what's best case scenario here? Like, what's best case scenario for Omar?
best case scenario is that he's like one of the 6 or 7 best center backs in the league. But he hasn't looked like that the last couple of years.
I still think that Toronto, with Bradley, Pozuelo, Josie, now if Omar comes back ready, and Mavinga, who's a few games this year has shown that he's one of the best center backs in the league. Drew Moore has been fit. Justin Morrow's been great. I still think that it's Toronto, Red Bulls, Atlanta are the 3 teams to beat. And I know Philadelphia's been great. I know NYCFC has only lost once. But I don't know how you don't look at that Toronto team with everyone healthy and say that is one of the teams.
Just a thing. Everything healthy. Everyone healthy is,
of course,
a big worry.
A giant if.
Yeah.
Especially Mavinga came off injured this weekend. Josie's about to play a summer tournament for the U.S., and we know what happens every time with that. Michael Bradley's missed the last couple of games. He's about to turn 32. A lot of ifs there.
For sure.
Pour me that poison chalice, baby. It's irresistible with Toronto. Zach Steffen has played his last MLS game, at least for now, headed to Manchester City or on loan. We're not yet sure what he's going to do. But I want to jump into his MLS legacy, as short as it might be. A goalkeeper of the year, a guy who had some heroics in the playoffs, someone who went to Europe, came back, pushed his way in. What is Zach Steffen's MLS legacy? What are you going to remember about his time in Major League Soccer? What did he teach us?
Andrew, I think about it in 2 ways. As a player, I think he's a great example of trying something, it not working out, call it failing if you want, coming back, starting from ground zero. He was a USL goalkeeper for half a year. It's not like he came right back and was a starter for Greg Berhalter in Columbus. He had to go to the Pittsburgh Riverhounds and play in USL.
Put some respect
Wow,
on
dude!
that
Of
name.
all people,
Put some
you're going to
respect.
drop that on the
That
Pittsburgh
stadium
Riverhounds.
is
mean?
gorgeous.
I think it's,
Although it was pre-Bob
listen,
Lilly,
big
so it's
big
tough.
Pittsburgh Riverhounds guy, but how many players have gone from the Riverhounds to now the number 1 on the U.S. depth chart in their career?
And also Manchester City. It's a valid
And that's the point.
I'll
And then
give
you
it
go
to you.
from the Riverhounds to MLS, you fight your way back, you prove yourself, and now you actually take a jump above where you were when it originally didn't work out. I think that's a great example and something for all players to remember, that it's okay. You can take a step back and still make it forward. And the second thing is, even though he was a goalkeeper, you don't often get to use this word with goalkeepers, he was thrilling to watch. He was exciting, whether it was the shot stopping, the PK saves, or just playing out of the back with the ball at his feet and his ability to pass and really combine as a goalkeeper with his center backs, with his center midfielders, really set Zach Steffen apart, and just the ability to watch him play a position and the enjoyment factor.
So it's not just now watching him on loan in Bristol City and saying, oh, wow, MLS sent this player here. He's the number 1 for the U.S., or at least could be. What does this mean for the U.S.? This move, Zach Steffen, what's his arc? Where's he going? What will he be? What does he need to be?
It doesn't mean anything if he ends up sitting on the bench for the next 5 years. He needs to win a starting job somewhere. I'm not sure he can do it with Manchester City, but Manchester City buys 1 million players, loans them out, and eventually they tend to find full-time jobs elsewhere. I think he'll end up being a Premier League goalkeeper. I think he can be a starter. I think he is that good. I do worry a little bit about his health. He's missed some games, and Steffen seems to be the type of guy where if he's 100%, he's 1,000%. But if he's anything less than that, his game really suffers. And we've seen that this year. He has not been the same guy since late March. First 4 weeks of the season, he was spectacular. He has not been that guy since then. So look, a lot of things still have to go right. But there's a reason they spent, $7, $8, $9 million, whatever it was. There's a reason why they did that, and fingers crossed that they were right to spend that money.
Last little piece, you can pour one out for the Philadelphia Union on all of that money. because they had him in their system.
Hey, look, if you can get Rice
They
and
bought-
Bowley, you got to do it.
They botched the goalkeeper position poorly, but also one last little piece is Bobby said he came from USL. He could have been in USL if it was 2 or 3 years later. He would have been on the Bethlehem Steel. That didn't exist at the time. He was in the academy. If he was going to sit on the bench in MLS, he was going to go sit on the bench in Germany.
He wasn't.
What?
None.
No?
Let's go. Move on.
Okay, we're moving on.
I hate that.
Bruce Arena, back to basics. He's on the sideline. He waffled a little bit. Will he, won't he, at Dignity Health Sports Park in L.A.? He's been there before. He's won a lot of games, a couple MLS Cups. He decided he would walk the sidelines with the Revs for the first time, and the Revs got another result, 2-1 win against the Galaxy. Zlatan had a goal late on that's, arguably it might be the goal of the season.
No, it wasn't.
No.
Even, it wasn't even the goal of the weekend.
You don't think so?
Will Johnson had the goal of the weekend.
Oh, interesting. Okay. I was...
The build-up to that goal.
Okay, but it wasn't Will Johnson.
Yeah,
Say
but come on.
Orlando.
Yeah, come on. But that's not going to go into goal of the year. I mean,
It should. That's the goal of the season.
okay.
Evan Bush
All right.
ran into a player.
We won't belabor that point. But they got to win in L.A.
Yeah,
They're 2 points
Revs
out of the
gotta win.
playoffs.
So if I was a Revs fan,
They could do this.
The first thing I would say is that was fun. It was fun to watch.
Yeah.
Like the team was enjoyable. They played with a little of aggression. They put out a bunch of fast players.
I think the word I used last night, or attempted to, was effervescence.
Ooh, a little sparkle.
You went home and
Practice
and
that. Yeah,
practiced.
you definitely practiced that. That slid off the tongue way too easily.
That's how I like to describe my wines, quite often, if they're effervescent. And I thought it was fun. So I enjoyed watching it as a neutral. So if I was a fan of the Revs, that's where I would start with. The other parts were like Juan Agudelo is a center mid now, which I thought was fascinating watching this game. And what if the way you get Juan Agudelo to dial in and take every moment seriously and play at his best is to give him the most responsibility ever? And Bruce Arena in 2019 unlocks Juan Agudelo
As
and
the
it's
world's greatest box-to-box
And it's
midfielder.
like,
What are you idiots
What?
doing? You just Sorry, my Bruce used to
No,
be way
he's a
better.
soccer
He's been out of the
player.
league too long, man.
And I love the box-to-box part. Makes me so happy because the left back joke has been used a lot because I do think a lot of players get moved to left back. But if I'm being totally honest with you guys, I think even more players should get moved to box-to-box. I think Sasha Kljestan should have been a box-to-box midfielder throughout his career. I think Lee Nguyen.
He was.
He was.
I know, except for when he went to MLS with the Red Bulls and then with the national
And
team.
won the assists title back-to-back. The first player ever to do that. Second player ever to have 20 assists.
No. He was
Second
not a
player
box-to-box.
ever
Stop.
to have 20
Stop.
assists.
He was not a
in season.
box-to-box.
No, I'm saying he was a 10, and he won the assists title back-to-back. The first player in MLS history to do that. The only player,
mad that you're
the
saying
only
he's
player
not
besides
And I'm telling-
Valderrama to have a 20 assist season, and
Fine. Listen, he was a good number 10.
won a Supporter
I'm not
Shield?
going to tell you he wasn't a good number 10. I'm telling you he would have better career, and the team would have been better with him at box-to-box. Benny Feilhaber would have had a better career, and his teams would have been better with him as box-to-box. Lee Nguyen, same thing. That we as American fans see these players a little bit of skill, and we're in an automatic rush to find our number 10, our savior of the sport, the guy that's going to wear that jersey, the guy that's going to play chip balls and through balls and bicycle kicks because that player has a little bit of skill. When really, they could have their maximum impact on the game if they were getting on the ball more often and facilitating. I don't understand why we simultaneously want a number 10 to save us and then we get mad why we can't keep possession. Well, maybe if we actually put our more skilled players as the players who keep possession, then we would actually get...
Juan Agudelo is 26 years old.
We
What
started
I'm
on
hearing
Bruce
right now
Arena.
is he's going to Qatar as a box-to-box midfielder. We have found the way to unlock Juan Agudelo. Bruce Arena, thank you, sir. They're playing a little different, though, Bobby. Walk us through that. I enjoyed your passion, so I want to keep you rolling here.
Well, the big thing to look at is where they defend, where they draw their line of confrontation. I think it's important to say line of confrontation, not necessarily where they start. Because even when they were pressing under Brad Friedel, they would start somewhere on the center circle and then sprint at you. But now the line of confrontation, which essentially means where do you start to defend? Where do you start to put pressure on the ball after that opposition crosses it? You might say 30 yards from their goal, meaning when they cross 30 yards from their own goal, you go and put pressure. You might say midfield. They have dropped that line of confrontation, which in layman's terms says they aren't a pressing team. If you look at their numbers, they used to be the team that won the ball in the attacking third the most under Brad Friedel. They won the ball in their defensive third the least under Brad Friedel. Now they're somewhere in the middle on both of those things because they've dropped the line of confrontation to what I would say has just made them generally a normal team. They do what normal teams do. They defend in normal places. They defend in normal ways. And then when they win it, because they do have talented players, they're getting forward quicker. There was this weird thing under Brad Friedel this year where they were simultaneously a pressing team, but like a Carlos Hill, possession, build, try and move the ball team. And among other things, that general tactical plan wasn't working. So now they're a little more solid defensively, but also just a little quicker in transition.
Carlos Vela was awesome.
Yeah, he was really good. And I think there was a lot of pieces out there that Pinilla, he's going to stay wide. You know what he's going to do. Fagundes floats in and out a little bit, but I think Hill had a structure in which it was like, now I know where pieces are, so I can find the game where I want to. And he looked the most comfortable. And the whole front 4 or 5, whatever you want to call them, looked really good. On the flip side for the Galaxy, 4 weeks ago, all they did was get balls wide and whipping crosses. And then this game, they played super narrow, and they had Steres at right back, which was a train wreck because Pinilla was wide open every time they picked up possession. But I would wonder if Dwan Jones and Brandon Bai can defend 1v1 consistently in a 90-minute game if you actually put them under pressure. And I'm a pretty big fan of Brandon Bai, and I like that they picked him up and put him at fullback, but he's new to the position. Dwan Jones has played like 3 times in his career. So the Galaxy, I don't think, took advantage of the issues that could be presented by this lineup for the Revs. But for Bruce, you roll it out first time. No one's ever seen it before. They don't know how to react. They don't know what to do, and it worked out perfectly.
Anyone want to put a B on this? Playoffs and the Revs? No? Couldn't sucker anybody into that? No? Too early? 2 points out, man. MLS for you. Eastern Conference for you. Some other news with the Revs, though. Kurt Anolfo hired as technical director. You probably heard it. It was coming. Richie Williams, assistant coach. The gang's getting back together. How should we maybe expect this to work? How might it work?
Well, it's interesting that they use the term technical director on him, and I do think it's confusing at times when teams give these labels or these names of the jobs because they're always different for every team. The way I think you should think about it is there are X number of things that a front office needs to do, call it 5 or 10, meaning the super draft, signing free agents, signing international players, managing your TAM and GAM, doing contracts with players when they actually agree to sign with you. There's all these different assignments, and you divvy it up however you want. For the most part now, when you look around Major League Soccer, the technical director is in charge of domestic decisions, the super draft, free agents, signing players who, trades, things like that.
Draft, stuff like
free
that.
entry draft. So when you think about Kurt Anolfo's job, he is probably not going to be the one to go sign the next Miguel Marone. He is going to be the one to manage the domestic decisions, similar to what a Chris Albright does in Philadelphia or a Luke Sassano does in Cincinnati.
A lot to get done with the Revs, though. But we're all on board the Colorado Rapids bandwagon. That is for certain.
This is a Colorado Rapids podcast.
Exactly.
Now.
Just give us a bunch of burgundy here on the front table, and I'll be in for it. You know?
Got a mug.
Oh,
Yeah.
I looked over.
Yeah, from Rapids Rabbi.
Bobby's over here taking off his headset. I thought he was actually taking his shirt off to reveal his Jack Price jersey. I honestly believe
I think
that
it's a
might
Sam
be the
Nicholson
case.
jersey now.
No, has it transitioned? FC Cincinnati are not playing well. Things are not going well for teams in Ohio. I will grant you that. 8 losses in 9 for them. They're basically following up on Cressy's form. But by God, 11 weeks of misery gets you 4 straight results. And it's a beautiful thing. I'm just here because I'm happy for any and all people, and there are a lot of them, it seems, packing the stadium, Dick's Sporting Goods Park, and watching what is now a team that has some hope, and they did not have hope.
All this stuff that we said about the Revs, how they're playing, dropping the line of confrontation, playing a little quicker from back to front, not really caring that much about possession, that applies to the Rapids. And they, Kai has been the center forward who comes back, and the defense comes with Kai when he comes back and checks back into the play, and that always opens up space in behind. And players like Nicholson, Jonathan Lewis, Andre Shinyashiki, who was great this week, those are the wingers. Those guys are exploiting that space. And then in central midfield, they have 3 guys who aren't playmakers, but can all pass. In Kellen Acosta, Jack Price, and Cole Bassett, who's been pretty nice so far this year. So that's it. It's not complex. They're just keeping it low. They're keeping it tight, getting out on the run. They've scored 12 goals in 6 games under Connor Casey. 6 of them have been off set pieces. 5 have been off the counter, and they got 1, the game winner this week, off a little bit of pressure. That's it.
A little detail to add to that about the wingers, they always run behind. They always, at all times, the Colorado Rapids have someone running directly at goal. Doesn't it feel like you watch games so often and there's 10 players checking to the ball, nobody doing a direct threat, nobody stretching the defense? The Rapids never have that problem. It's very clear that there's always somebody running behind. On a macro scale, what I find interesting about the Revs and Colorado is that it is possible to play in a maybe use the word defensive mindset, but still be fun. Like, you can play in this way and still be great to watch if you do it in the right way, if you have the right players.
It's about movement off the ball.
Right. But
It's like, if you look at so many teams who are like, we're just trying to, keep this close and not take too many risks, it ends up being so static off the ball. And the Revs last night, especially in the Rapids so far under Connor Casey, they haven't been static off the ball at all. At all.
And that feels like a really important distinction to me, because so many teams are scared to play that way because of the aesthetics. And as they should. You are trying to put out an entertainment product, but it's possible to do it in a intelligent way that maximizes your team's chances of winning, but also be fun. You don't have to sacrifice anything if you do it in the right process.
I have a friend who's a season ticket holder. He was having fun at the games before, wasn't having fun with the soccer. He's texting me after all these games saying, yeah, that was fun. The people in my section, they were into it. And it doesn't have to be the, quote, Rapids way that we put out an editorial in the paper about. Effective is going to win the day.
Energy is infectious. What you were saying, movement off the ball, it's energy, right? It's just like a desire to play. Even if it's defensive, it's closing down quickly. It's being, the first to that 50-50 ball. And like, that's 60% of the battle, it feels like sometimes. In teams that do sit back, they can't have that mentality.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is, and I think it's different with different teams, and we've discussed
it's conviction. I think that, I imagine that Connor Casey, if I was an interim head coach taking over, I think I would probably just simplify everything and then be like, let's not worry about, steps X, Y, and Z. Let's get A, B, C, and D right so that everything becomes so simple, whether you're on or off the ball. And you know what? If you lose it, it's okay. We got 7 guys back. Let's try it all over again, and maybe this time Nicholson gets behind, and then we're off to the races. That's fine.
One little piece on the macro level is, normally this is not sustainable to be a good team in Major League Soccer, because you have to be able to do something else, and everyone else is going to scout you and watch you and get ready for it. So it's fun, and also when you lose a coach, a lot of times the team's been bad, and so everyone's happy because things have changed and things are good. It's not a fix. So it has to be understood that you want to win games, but the front offices of those two teams, obviously New England's a little different because it's Bruce, they need to figure out how to change it future.
Bobby is puzzled right now.
What do you mean it's not sustainable? I mean, how does this differ than what the Portland Timbers did in 2018? It's literally
But didn't the Portland
Timbers
hit a wall?
did it.
They hit a wall.
No, but they also
made it to MLS Cup. Their
Portland
wall
Timbers
was the
had
truck.
Diego Valeri, Sebastian Blanco, and Diego
Okay, so
Chara.
that's fair. You could say that maybe you have to have a certain
Valerius
amount of,
Mabiala, you could even add to
you have to have a certain amount of talent, but I don't want to say it's not sustainable. You might need certain players to make it sustainable, but the general approach in itself is sustainable to ride to MLS Cup.
Is it, before we move on, is it good timing for these two teams that they've got that little bit of like the momentum, the belief, the conviction right before a break? Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I think it's a good thing for New England because they have this confidence going into the break, and it's going to give Bruce the chance to knit this locker room together even more than it already obviously has been, in the past few games, while implementing maybe a few wrinkles. Bruce is not a big wrinkles guy, but
You should probably do finishing drills. That's
probably do finishing drills. Colorado, it's a little trickier because they still don't have an official head coach. So what happens if in the middle of this break you get a head coach? Does that mean what we've seen the last 4 or 6 weeks it gets squandered? It's tough. It's a tough situation for the Rapids. Regardless, though, I think Connor Casey's done a very good job.
So this weekend, guess who's hosting Minnesota? It's Colorado. That could be a win for them. Minnesota on the road's not great. Minnesota at home, first loss at Allianz Field. Philadelphia Union, after a tough stretch at home, went on the road, got it done, 3-2. Darwin Quintero had, I don't want to call it a sitter because there's a goalkeeper in front of him. There's another player. There's a little bit of pressure. But he had some opportunities in this game. He hasn't scored in, 2 months? About 2 months. This was last year a guy that every single show, it seemed like mid to late summer, we were saying this is arguably the best player in Major League Soccer. Minnesota need him to be
Mainly
their best
you
player.
Were saying that, but
Hey, I was all on board. I'm a
saying that
big
too?
Club America guy. Our friend Rich.
More of a Santos guy.
More of like a Cruz
Santos
Azul
Darwin
sort of,
best Darwin.
Yes.
What happened here? Is there something off with Darwin Quintero? He should be the Loons' best player, but he doesn't appear to be.
Bobby, what do you think?
And they need him to be.
No, I don't have a great
think,
answer. I was
Bobby?
pointing to you guys because I don't have a great answer.
I don't either.
If I were to just do this in the most generic way possible, I would say that Angelo Rodriguez has come into the team. He's starting when Darwin was crushing it. Romario Ibarra was up top, and Ibarra's movement and the way he played with Darwin seemed to connect better with Quintero than Angelo. But at the same time, if I just think about the logic of Angelo stretching the field, doing hold-up play for Darwin, I would also think that that should work for a player like Quintero. So I don't have a great answer why he's not playing well, except to just echo, what Manu Lago said is this happens to players like him. It happens to Alberth Elise. It happens to Jefferson Severino. Everyone non-Carlos Vela, this happened, I guess it even happens to Carlos Vela at stages of his career where they're incredibly hot, and then they're not, and then it comes again. And this is what you get when you sign mercurial attackers.
You talked about Club America. You talked about Santos. He didn't play in the middle of the field. He played out wide, and he came in and attacked. And I think that changes the load on your body, and I think it changes how you can, manage the game in the way you want to. And now he's a central attacking player, and everyone's fouling him, and everyone's around him, and then he has to be involved constantly, and he has to help defensively more. So that could be part of this. Is just he came in, he was excited, he wanted to be the center of everything. He's scoring goals, and then as things slow down and it starts to wear on his body, he might not be capable of this. And everyone that Bobby just named plays on the wing. Carlos Vela right now plays on the wing. So there might be a spot where you try and push him out wide a little and just get some, or make it a little easier for him to see if you can get him back into his zone.
You said Darwin Quintero came in. In this game, he came out. Subbed off in the 69th minute. 20 minutes left in this game. At home, they were down a goal at the time, chasing a result, generating tons of chances.
Yeah.
I mean, that...
Bold sub. It was a bold sub.
The bold
We should add Kevin Molino scored. The player that came on for Quintero scored the equalizer, but Quintero did not look
And
happy.
he might be a big piece of getting Quintero back to where he wants to be, which is if Molino can take some of the pressure off.
But this is that was a bold sub from Adrian Heath.
Eye-opening. 3-2 to the Union. Obligatory Union conversation right now.
Austin Trusty, goal scorer.
Yeah, that was
a finish.
That was filth. Coleman afterwards, one of the few to speak. He took what he needed to, the lumps there, saying, why am I heading the ball when it's at shin level? Austin Trusty dives in, scores a beautiful goal. Anything from the Union there? They're at the top of the East.
It's funny. It's just a funny game because the last three games, I thought they were the better team each time out. At home, two of those games you would have looked at and said, yeah, they should win those, absolutely. And they came away with 2 draws and a loss in 3 home games. They go to this game, they probably were not the better team. They created some really, really good chances, and they finished 3 of them, so they got the W. But even Alejandro Bedoya was tweeting it after the game. He's like, we maybe didn't even deserve to win this one, but we got it. It's a strange game. I think that this is, in years past, this Union team would have lost this game 4-2, and we would be talking about how their good month and a half or 2 months was just a mirage, and they're not going to hold up for the rest of the year. But I still have all my Philadelphia Union stock.
I would love to have just a running update of your stock reserves.
My portfolio, my MLS stock portfolio.
I didn't even know the words.
I got in early on that Jackson Ewell stock, by the way. U.S. national team midfielder Jackson Ewell. U.S. national team midfielder Jonathan Lewis. I'm sitting pretty.
Yeah, oh yeah, he's just going through the hits.
Better than Bitcoin, boys.
Going through the hits.
Doing U.S. Open Cup's fun because you get to go do amateur teams that aren't professional and look at former Doyle stock high guy.
I have a lot of. Who's the number 10 for the soccer soldiers?
Sabella.
I love Sabella. Got a little bit of Sabella stock.
Look, there's a lot of stock in the U20 World Cup. U.S.
juice.
fans trying to figure out where our guys stand against the rest of the world. Well, they'll stand for the rest of their careers. Round of 16 against France, 11:30
This
a.m.
decides their whole career?
No, I'm not saying it. It's
this game got
moment
bigger.
by moment, man. You can't predict the future. 11:30 a.m. Fox Sports Plus is where you can watch this one, or if you have Fubo or however you watch your soccer these days. Before we get to the mailbag here, quick thoughts. What are you looking for? We'll analyze more on Thursday, of course.
We've talked a lot about the players. I want to highlight Tab Ramos real quick because we think that he's going to become a professional coach after this tournament, maybe in Major League Soccer. It's unclear whether he's had a good tournament so far, making adjustments in the first game, adjustments in the third game. And it seems pretty clear that if this team is at their best, we saw it against Nigeria, they are pretty dang good, that they have the players, they have the fluidity to ball out. It's up to Tab Ramos to find the right mixture of players. And yes, Alex Mendez is out, Chris Durkin is out. with yellow card accumulation, but it seems clear that this team can be very, very good, and there's an onus on Tab Ramos to pull it out of
To
them.
me, it comes down to two things. First of all is right back. You can't play Mark McKenzie at right back again. I'm hoping that he won't. It's got to be Araujo or Dest. I worry that Dest will get absolutely annihilated
physically,
defensively. He's not a good defender by any measure. Araujo's a little bit better, but Dest is so important for the U.S. buildup. Just his centrality as a right fullback in terms of, funneling the ball from back to front, creating chances, getting forward, creating overloads. It's tough. It's a tough decision, but it's got to be one or the other. It can't be a center back played out of position. That's one. The bigger one is central midfield. I thought it was a huge mistake to start Durkin and Cervania, who are both defensive midfielders, and Mendez against Cutter. I thought it led to passivity. It led to a confusion off the ball, an inability to create penetration through midfield. It has to be either Cervania or Cirillo at defensive midfield, Paxton Pomical as the 8, Richie Ledesma as the 10. If that is our central midfield, and if we have an actual right back and everything else is as it should be, we got a real chance against this French team.
For anyone who hasn't watched, France won their group, but they actually haven't played great, and they've also rotated their lineup completely. So it's a bit of a question mark for the U.S. what they're going up against. So it should be fun to watch.
Yeah, and also, by the way, I'm looking forward to all the folks who say, oh, the U.S. only cares about athleticism when they size and athleticism when they watch that French team of freaking giants.
All right, mailbag time. We have, as we normally do, forgotten to give away our jerseys here. We have 2 to give out to Fantasy Winners. Winters. Zapater, Dynabros 713 won last week. Ajax USA Seltzer. I think that's Greg Seltzer.
That is Greg, yeah.
That's got to be Greg Seltzer. Won this week. So
Can I pull
this
one out?
Yeah, pull one out.
MLSsoccer.com legend.
Who's
Getting
this for?
This is going to be for the Dynabro.
Whoa!
Whoa! Eastern Conference. I'm thinking.
Maxi?
I think that's Maxi.
Yeah.
The Z on the end gives it away. So Maxi Morales signed NYCFC jersey. This one for Greg Seltzer. No Ajax jerseys here for him, but we do have a New York Red Bulls.
A double.
Oh, no, it is. It is a Kaku, I believe, and maybe a BWP.
Wow.
Does Kaku sign it Kaku? Or does
Yeah, he does. It just says Kaku. Yeah, I don't know. It's those are good ones. Those are good polls right there. So, Greg, congratulations. What
Ready
else we
for
have
some
here?
mail?
401-206-0MLS.
Joe from Minnesota says, it was awesome seeing the great Kalen Card Allianz Field this week, and I also was lucky enough to meet Susanna and Wiebe at our home opener. However, in 5 games at Allianz with no extra time host present, only 1 goal has been scored on the Loons. In 2 games with extra time host presence, we've had 6 goals scored against us. I'd love to see the rest of the extra time crew in St. Paul for a game, but please, please, please leave your curses at home.
Kalen Carr, it's an open question as to whether he works here anymore. He does not. He's not ever here. I mean,
and then
we love you, Kalen.
Let's close out on a tough one. Brandon in Columbus here. Obviously, the crew have been decimated by injury so far, and I'll confess, I'm new to Columbus and the crew. So, what options, if any, do they have from a youth perspective to replace Gonzalo Higuain? He tore his ACL. He will be out for the full season, guys. How do they replace him?
Isn't Josh Wolfskid a playmaker?
Yeah, I don't think this
No,
one's
he's a winger. No, I got it.
This one's not coming from the
I got
academy,
it.
I don't think.
Matt, you ready over there?
But Bobby's going to tell you to play 3 defensive midfielders. And Pedro Santos at left back.
He is. Oh, first of all, I wasn't even
going
going
to tell you. He's going to tell you to bench Jossie Zardes.
Pedro Santos actually might have been a left back candidate at some point in Bobby's brain.
Oh my God! You know what that's called? Inception. But yeah. Well, I got nothing wrong. Why can't the Columbus Crew do what LAFC do? Right, they don't have Latif Blessing, and who knew that Latif Blessing could do what Latif Blessing is doing before Latif Blessing started doing it? But why can't they replicate that? Why can't they go Guzman, Artur, Pedro Santos, especially with Will Trapp leaving for national team duty, and say, I dare you to try and pass through the middle against us. Just try something new.
Oh, I have a reason, because they don't have Carlos Vela.
Whoop.
You're right.
Yeah, that would
You're
be
right, David. But they do have...
Who? Pedro Santos is now inside for you.
Why do you let me do this every time? You fall for this every time.
I guess David Acom is kind of back to...
Let's close out one on Wiebe, because Wiebe likes to talk about Wiebe. Perry in Portland says, I'm upset Wiebe's not going to be at the opening of Providence Park. He always talks about coming for a game and doesn't. How about coming on August 16th, 17th, and 18th? You've got T2 on Friday, Thorns, and then the MLS Cup rematch on Sunday. So you not only would get 2 home games, you'd get 3. And you get an MLS
Jason
Cup rematch.
Zucchini, are you watching / listening either on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast? Because that, my friend, is a plan. That is bookable. I can execute on that. We can lock this in this minute, right now. I will walk out of this studio.
Would you bring Cam and
Yes,
Mindy?
I will bring Cam and Mindy.
Or would you make it like a bachelor's weekend?
No. Mindy's best friend just moved to Portland.
Oh, wow.
So we have
Everything is
the universe is lining
Conspiring
up,
to send
lining up all the
Andrew.
dominoes, and I'm about to go knock them down via Slack right now after this. Anything left, guys?
Yeah, shout out to our audio guy, Carlos, who does a great job. Ecuador just got through to the quarterfinals of the U20 World Cup.
Yeah. Hey, shout out to Kalen as well. I joked about him not being here. He's doing movement shoots. He did a Ramadan one with LAFC. That's going to be eye-opening, I'm sure of it. Pride Night for Minnesota he did. By the way, props to every single one of those supporters groups that put up those Pride tifos this weekend. That's awesome.
Some
Soccer
great
for all.
ones in Dallas.
Yeah,
a great one in Columbus.
We support our LGBTQ community and friends and family. But Kalen said he's not watching very much soccer right now because he's so busy taping and filming and being talent. But he said the Extra Time crew is keeping him up to date on all the games. He feels as
Kalen,
though
always
he's
in my
actually
heart.
watched, even though he's only looking at the stats right now.
He knows that everyone in MLS is a left back and a box-to-box
Exactly.
now.
Mm-hmm. He should have been a box-to-box midfielder. Actually, he probably would have been better
Is
as
that
an
coming
outside
through
back.
in the audio?
Thanks for listening.
It's gross.
For Matt, Bobby.
Subscribe
Dave,
to my new
I'm Andrew.
newsletter, U.S. National Team newsletter.
Oh, it's plug time? We're getting out of here.
Plug
We'll see you
time.
on Thursday.